Hello, my name is Tristan Ubaldi. I am PhD student at the Head Design Research Unit at the University of Picardie, Jules Verne in Amiens, in France. And today I will present you my research topic, which led me to work on the NMI methods, the niche margin index, which is a method for measuring the distance of future bioclimatic conditions in Europe from the three species realized niche margin. First, I will begin by a short presentation of the context that led me to work with this metric, and then I will present more in detail how we can use the NMI methods for this kind of study. Currently in Europe, you know that the trade mortality in European forests is increasing, and many factors are responsible of this increasing, but they are mainly caused by the effect of current climate change. And one of the effects of the climate change is the increase of the frequency and duration of drought, which severely affect forest tree species, and particularly the native tree species to European forest. As we can see here on this graphic, this is an example where we can see the increase of the forest canopy mortality due to drought in the recent decades. And in this new context of climate change in Europe, the tree species can only adapt to the new climatic condition or to migrate to following the climatic optimum or to die. But the problem is that the current rate of migration of the tree species in Europe is much more slower than the rate of the current climate change. And so the native European tree species are just a risk of die. But one of the strategies employed by forest manager to compensate this loss of tree species in European forest is to introduce new exotic species that are supposed to be better adapted to future climatic conditions in Europe. So in this context, the objective of my study and of my thesis is to characterize the climatic niche of their tree species, both to the native tree species to European forest, but also to the exotic species introduced into Europe, in order to determine if the climatic condition in Europe will be similar to the condition within the niche of their species by the end of century in Europe. And then the aim is to determine if their species will find a climatic condition favorable to them in the future in European forest. But first, I will quickly describe what is a species climatic niche. So in an environmental space, but here is climatic space, which represents the possible combination of climatic conditions within a region. Here, for example, on the left, we can see the observed combination of temperature in T and precipitation in P observed in South America. And within this climatic space, we can observe the climatic condition that the species can tolerate within the South America. And this condition that the species can tolerate is represents the fundamental niche of the species. Here we can observe with the black circle. But this fundamental niche remains highly conceptual because what we actually observe is only the realized niche of the species, shown here in blue. And the realized niche of the species represents the climatic condition present in the area occupied by the species. That means, in other words, the climatic condition within the observed distribution of the species. But generally, the realized niche is smaller than the fundamental niche because it excludes the climatic conditions that are inaccessible for the species because they are already occupied by other species, meaning excluding by biotic interaction, such as we can see here in green, or simply inaccessible to the species because they are too far away in the geographical space, such as in red here, despite the fact that their inaccessible conditions are favorable to the species. In our case, we are working only with the realized niche of the tree species because we are only based on the observed distribution of the species around the world. So to answer to her research question, generally the scientific use modeling as a species distribution model, SDM, but in our case we decide to not use SDM, but to turn to ordination methods, such as principal component analysis, PCA, in order to characterize the climatic niche of the tree species and to represent their niche in the climatic space. So the PCA allow us to represent an n-dimensional space where n is the number of variables studied in a two-dimensional space. And this is useful to quantify the bioclimatic space representing all conditions in the world and the condition within the niche of the species. So as an example, I take two tree species native from different parts of the world. We have Polonia tomentosa in purple. It's a tree species native from Asia, as you can see in the distribution 1 in purple. And the second one is Fagus sylvatica, a tree species native from Europe. And you can see this natural distribution in distribution 2. And we can see the duality between environmental space and geographic space because we have two different example species from very distant region of the world, and we can represent within the environmental space the niche of the two species. We can see the similarity or difference of climatic conditions occupied by the two species in the same space. So one of the main advantages of working directly with PCA is that we can directly compare climatic envelopes within the same climatic space. That means that we can compare the niche of two species, or can be also we can compare the climatic condition between two geographic distant regions, and we can directly compare the similarity of the difference of climatic condition between the two envelopes directly in the same climatic space. Then, in order to quantify this similarity or difference between climatic envelope, we use the metric, the niche margin index, proposed by Broennimann in 2021. And these metrics measure how far the climatic condition within an introduced site are inside or outside the native climatic niche of a species. And for that, the NMI gives a value, meaning that climatic conditions that diverge from the niche have a negative value, as you can see here in yellow, corresponding to outside the niche. And at the opposite, we have positive value when climatic conditions are inside the niche of the species. And the centroid of the niche is equal to 1 in blue, and the margin of the species is in white, in equal to 0. So now I represent you how we use NMI, how I have adapted this metric to my case of study, and I will present you my initial results. So in this study, we decide to select 15 climatic variables from CHELSA database, including 7 variables relative to temperature, as you can see here, and 4 variables relative to precipitation, 2 variables describing seasonality, and 2 additional variables. Their variables are commonly used in study investigating the distribution of forestry species in response to climate change, as they are considering essential for plant physiological process such as growth, survival, and reproduction. So we extract their climate variables for several time periods. First, in the left, the past, and then period considering as current period, and then we have 3 different future periods: near future, mid-century, and the end of century. And for their period, we select 3 climate scenarios. Then, after to have select the climate variables and the period we want to study, we create a background representing all climate conditions available between the past period and the end of the century. For here, we focus only on one scenario, and we obtain all climatic conditions available within the 8 territorial biogeographic domain in order to represent within the PCA all possible climatic conditions in the world over whole period we want to study. As we can see here on the left, we can observe the background in the climate space And the first two axes of the PCA representing 82% of the scatter plot. So only 18% of the information is not visible on the two first axes of the PCA. So it's a good results. And we also can see that the temperature variables appear to be highly correlated with the first dimension, while the precipitation variables appear to be more correlated to the second dimension. So to better illustrate where climatic conditions are located within the background, we have placed some cities, and we can see where they are located within the global climate space. And what we observe is that some cities are located in very wet and hot part of the climatic space. Is the case of Quito or Singapore, but we can also observe some cities located in very dry and hot part of the climatic space, such as Delhi, Cairo, or Las Vegas. Something very interesting with this background is because we have in the same space the past and also the future condition. By the end of the century, we can see the evolution of the climatic condition observed in each city. And what we can observe is very interesting, is that the climatic condition in the future in the city Helsinki will be the same that the one observed in the past in Amiens. And also, or we can observe a trend, general trend, where a majority of city trend to go in warmer climatic condition in the world comparing to past period. And on the right, we have the geographical space, which is represented with the same color gradient as the background in order to show where the climatic conditions observed in the climatic space are located in the geographical world. So this background in the PCA space will be our basis. On each, we will be able to work and measure climatic distance between niche and region using NMI. So after to have created the background, as we can see here in gray within the PCA space, we can add supplementary observation, such as the climatic condition present in the area where the species we are studying is found. In other words, that means we represent the realized climatic niche of the species, as we can see here in the PCA in green. And also we can add as supplementary observation the climatic condition in the study area here in Europe, as we can see inside the PCA in purple. But here the climatic condition in Europe represent the current climatic condition in Europe, but we can also work with past and future climatic condition in Europe, while the niche of the species is always calibrated to the present and past period. This is what we will see now. So to extract the climatic data for the species and the study area, we crop the raster at the global scale. For the native range of the species, climatic data is extracted from the past period, assuming that the distribution map established by experts are generally reflecting the natural distribution of the species before the anthropic climate change. For the observation of the species, climate data are extracted from the current period before is considering as a current observation of the species in the world. To calibrate the species niche, we add together climatic data from the native range over the past period and species records from the current period. And then for the study area here in Europe, we extract climatic data for all period to study the results over all period. And then within the environmental space, the NMI allows us to determine if the climatic condition of the study area here in Europe are outside of the niche of the species, as we can see here in orange with a negative NMI value, or if the conditions are at the margin of the niche species with an NMI value of 0, or if the climatic conditions in Europe are inside the niche of the species, here in blue with a positive NMI value. And then now each point in Europe representing 10 km by 10 km have a NMI value. The result can be reprojected into geographic space, giving us a map that shows the geographic area where climatic condition will be inside or outside the niche of the species we want to study. So in this study, we focus on 261 tree species with 120 European native tree species and 141 exotic tree species in Europe. But for this video, I will focus on only one example tree species. So to quickly present some results, we will focus on one example tree species. Here is Robinia pseudoacacia. It's a tree species exotic in Europe, native to North America. Here the niche of the species is calibrated using whole observation of the species in the world. And we can see the evolution of climatic condition in Europe comparing to past and future periods. With the light blue is a delimitation of climatic condition in Europe comparing to the niche of the species, delimited in green. So now we can observe the results in the geographic space, and what we observe is a migration of climatic condition favorable for the Robinia by the end of the century, expanding from the northern and eastern part of Europe, but reducing along the Mediterranean coast and mainly in Spain by the end of the century. So finally, we can summarize the results by summarizing the evolution of the NMI over the century in a single map is something similar to what the range site function can offer within a Biomod2 package. So we can see that the NMI value will always be positive. That means always inside the species niche during the 21st century in dark green. We can also observe the condition that will always be negative. That means always outside the niche in gray. And we can also observe a climatic condition that will be within the niche across the century, changing from negative to positive NMI value in light green. And then the climatic condition that will not longer be within the niche of the species during the century, changing from positive to negative NMI value in orange. This allows us to better observe the evolution of favorable and unfavorable conditions for the target species over the century, where we can clearly see that the migration of favorable conditions from the Mediterranean region to north part of Europe. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you found this video interesting, and I will be here in the September 22 to answer to your question. So thank you again and see you then.